Warhammer 40,000 Gladius was released back in 2018, but it has received expansions and add-ons ever since, with the latest being released in May of 2020, and that's when it showed up on my radar. It is a combat-focused 4X set in the Warhammer 40k universe. It is also a game made of paradoxes that, instead of cancelling each other out, work very well together. There are so many Warhammer 40k games out there, it's really hard to keep track of them. And to be honest, many of them are pretty hit and miss. So it's even harder to decide which ones are actually worth your time and money. Well, I hope I can fix that today, at least in regards to Gladius. If this is the first time on my channel, welcome. I'm Steven Nonsense, geek culture analyst, 4X extraordinaire. I bring you indie RPG strategy and city builder reviews, so make sure to subscribe if you enjoy what I'm trying to build here. Also, don't forget to click that bell button, it really helps a lot. The Warhammer 40k universe is so vast, with lore that has been very actively built since 1987, that I feel any Warhammer 40k themed video game is most likely the introduction to someone into the universe. In my case, that introduction was Dawn of War 2, and thank the God Emperor that it was that game, because Dawn of War 2 is a really solid game. You can find my review right there. That game sparked my interest in the 40k universe and also in the actual miniature war game. Well, more in the miniatures than the war game, to be honest. And I also feel that Gladius does a fairly good job at introducing the major players and general concepts of the universe, at least as far as I understand them. The base game, Relics of War, comes with 4 of the factions in the universe. The Space Marines, which I think most of you are at least tangentially familiar with. If nothing else, you're familiar with the term because of StarCraft, Halo, Aliens, or Starship Troopers, either the movie or the book. Which, quick tangent. Well, actually 2 tangents. First one. The company who created the Warhammer tabletop war game, Games Workshop, trademarked the term Space Marine in relation to their game. Kind of a generic trademark if you ask me, but on the other hand, I'm also a sci-fi geek, so whatever, what's done is done. This is why in StarCraft, for instance, they are generally referred to as Terran Marines. But back in 2013, Games Workshop thought it was within their rights to send a takedown notice to Amazon for someone else's book just for containing Space Marines in the title, even if it had nothing to do with their game and hence their trademark, which again is based on a term most likely created by Robert A. Heinlein in Starship Troopers. So what I'm saying is Games Workshop is a bunch of dicks. Second tangent. StarCraft was initially planned to be a Warhammer 40k game. That's why the races in StarCraft have some striking similarities to races from the Warhammer universe. The Terran Marines are probably the easiest similarity to spot, but the Protoss definitely started life as the Eldar, and the Zerg are definitely Tyranids. Anyway, tangents over. Where was I? Oh yeah, Gladius factions. So you initially have the Space Marines, Orcs with a K, they're basically Orcs in space, the Astra Militarum, which are the average humans, and the Necrons, basically space terminators. Each subsequent DLC added a new faction, and the add-ons added some new buildings and units. I only got the Chaos Space Marines one because they're my second favorite faction after the Astra Militarum and the latest add-on, the Assault Pack. So despite this super long, deep and heavy lore attached to the universe, Gladius has no single player campaign. Instead, you can play only skirmish games against the AI or human opponents. That being said, despite the lack of a campaign, you still get quests. Remember when I said the game is made out of paradoxes? Well, this is one of them. You can turn them off if you want to, but they are great for beginners to both the game and the universe. When playing a game, you will be prompted with fulfilling certain quest requirements, like researching some piece of technology and or building something in order to obtain a reward. They are optional and very simple, but I think they help quite a bit, especially at the beginning, because it gives you a better idea of how to start your game. Whenever you start a new game, you get your faction's intro. These are pretty cool and appropriate. They basically set up the motivation for each of them and give you a general thematic idea of what they're about, just in case this is your introduction to the Warhammer 40k universe. Good stuff. The illustrations are top-notch as well all throughout the game. The beginning of most 4X games is generally on the slow side of things. However, that is what I tend to like most, because there is an unknown map out there, ready to be explored and resources and secrets to be uncovered. The beginnings in Gladius are likewise slow, but at the same time they are very active. Second paradox. You won't be doing as much exploring as you would generally because you will have to constantly fight the planet's creatures, which simply do not stop coming, and this is both good and bad. On the good side of things, Gladius does not relent. It keeps hitting you, making exploration and expansion incredibly challenging. On the bad side of things, enemies simply spawn from nowhere, sometimes within your own territory. This becomes frustrating because you'll have to constantly shift troops back to deal with random spawns. Generally, when one clears a portion of the map, one expects it to stay clean for at least a while, especially if one is active in said area. Otherwise, the game is heavily combat focused. It is fairly tactical and has a lot of intricacies and synergy that you have to get used to using in order to give your troops the edge in fights. There are a bunch of hero units which are really fun to play with. You can outfit them with special items, level them up with special abilities. It's good hexa tactical fun and carnage. Depending on your faction, your resource requirements will vary. The Necrons, for instance, do not need any food. Similarly, your capacity of expanding will depend on the faction you're playing with, so there are lots of factors you need to take into consideration. Gladius is also pretty fun in multiplayer with one or more friends if you happen to have those, but keep in mind that the turns are actually simultaneous. So in case you're playing in a team, make sure you constantly communicate with each other just so you use both your troops at their optimum capacity. Warhammer 40k Gladius is a pretty solid combat focused 4X. It offers constant challenges, sometimes frustratingly so. It is also a decent introduction to the Warhammer 40k universe, so I have no qualms about suggesting it to those interested in the type of experience I just described. Hey there, dear watcher who is still watching, thank you very much for sticking around. I have recently started a Patreon page, so if you want and can throw a couple of bucks my way, go on there and check out the tiers and rewards. I've been Stephen Nonsense, thank you very much for watching, see you next time and have a great rest of the day.